Welcome to the Existential Edge podcast, presented by the United States Association for Small Business and Entrepreneurship. How is entrepreneurship transforming university environments? What are its most compelling lessons? How can an entrepreneurship program make maximum impact on its ecosystem and change the lives of students and others in the process? Join Patrick J. Murphy, Goodrich Endowed Chair, Professor, and Director of the Entrepreneurship Program at the University of Alabama at Birmingham as he hosts leading entrepreneurs from across the country and beyond for provocative and insightful discussions of these and other questions.
Welcome, everybody, to the Existential Edge podcast. We're very excited today. We'll be talking with another really interesting entrepreneur, Miss Nadeya Hassan. Nadeya Hassan founded a health and wellness company, which we're going to learn all about. It's called Zaya. She's based in Berlin, Germany. And as you know, as listeners of this podcast, we first take a deep dive into the entrepreneur's personal background and their values and their beliefs, and get to know them a little bit, and take about 15 minutes to do that. Then in the second part of the program, we take about 15 minutes or so to learn about their business and how it started, how it's grown, how it's evolved, what kind of impact they're making. And then in the final third section, we learn about our guests' views on entrepreneurship education. And so, Nadeya, it is a thrill and an honor to have you here, and we look forward to getting to know you.
Yes, thank you so much, Patrick, for having me. I'm so excited to dive into this conversation with you. It's actually pretty funny. I don't know if I told you this, but back at DePaul, I remember when I was in your class, you had entrepreneurs coming into one of our lectures, and they were talking about their business. And I was thinking to myself, when I was sitting in my seat, I hope to one day be one of those entrepreneurs that Patrick brings into his class. And so, now it's another sort of variation of it. So it's pretty amazing what can happen.
That's right. I mean, your dreams become reality. And, look here, we're in a big class right now because a lot of people listen to this podcast, and you're doing it from another country, no less.
Yeah. Who would have known?
Great. So Nadeya, if what I'd like to do now is kind of, don't really talk about your business yet. Just kind of what we do as educators is we try to teach the whole person. We try to really connect and transform and inspire through our lessons and our lectures and the educational experiences we provide. So in doing that, it helps to get to know the people who become entrepreneurs. And they're all different, of course, but everyone has their own unique story. So if you could just go back before you became an entrepreneur, when you were young, were there any key experiences growing up, or anything that's always motivated you, anything about your sensibilities or your personality? Just give us a good sense of who you are as a human being.
Yeah, I would say that ever since I was young, I was very determined. And that's something that my parents would always say. Whenever I wanted something, I would go for it. And, I even remember back in high school, I started my own, it was something small, but it was my own little radio station I started. I wanted to one day be a radio DJ. And so I was like, you know what? I want to become a radio DJ. Great. I'm going to start taking the steps necessary to become a DJ on the radio. And so I started my own radio station, and it's pretty embarrassing now that I think about it, but it was amazing. It played on the, what is it called? On the sound speakers throughout the school during lunchtime. And I called it Snack Hour Radio. And I remember I would interview someone, I would play music. And that was just the first step that I took. And I remember reaching out and really making an effort to even meet people who were in the industry to try and really understand it. I think I was about maybe 14 or 15 years old. And that really started to kind of just continue throughout my life. And yeah, it's kind of that's just how it's been ever since. And I've always felt like entrepreneurship was really something that I was destined for.
So did you have any Was it really just you driving that and creating that radio station, or were there some key supporters in the community or a mentor or anybody, or both? I mean,
Hmm.
like how it really started, the initial spark, and how it became successful. What gave you the confidence to do that at that age?
I really don't know. I think I do remember that somebody came in to speak at our school once. And I remember different speakers coming into our school, just talking about different topics. And I always felt inspired to just do more than what the average person might want to achieve. Um, and I think just seeing those types of role models at such a young age, getting exposed to that, it your mind starts expanding. You start thinking, well, what other opportunities, what other possibilities are there in the world besides what's happening just right here in my little bubble? And I think that was something that kind of always just made me want to do more. And also, I would say traveling as well. I was born in Chicago, but then I moved with my family to Australia when I was 12. And that was a really big life change. It was something where I had to push myself outside of my comfort zone. I was able to explore a different culture. And when you kind of are pushed at that young age to do something that causes you to adapt quickly, that causes you to just think outside of, the narrow mind, I think it just changes your perception of the world. And I think that that's a really one of the foundational qualities when it comes to entrepreneurship. It's the ability to be adaptable. It's the ability to think outside the box and just kind of be more creative and explorative around different things. So
We talk about that a lot of times in my field as global thinking. It's good to think global but act local, right? And so as a young person who's finding her way and developing her set of values and what you think and what you believe in and so forth, to go to Australia from Chicago, and now you're in Germany, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but to see like what you are and not can be so powerful, because you learn a lot of things that are invisible to you. Like if you were to stay in one place and just do the same things, there's nothing wrong with that, of course, but you take so much for granted, and it's like fish don't know they're wet, right? Or if you live in a world where everything is blue, you don't know what blue is until you get out of it and live somewhere else. So are you saying
exactly.
that kind of experience had a real profound impact on how you view the world and how you define yourself?
Definitely, 100%, 100%. Yeah. So yeah, it's really about learning how to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. It's one of the biggest gifts that you can kind of give yourself, is pushing past that sort of uncomfortability, because it's not easy. A 12-year-old that doesn't really know much, all of a sudden in a whole other world, where everything is on the opposite side of the world and different accents and things like that. But yeah, it definitely impacted me.
So yeah, it's very interesting. I'm wondering if folks who don't have as much of an opportunity to travel, how they can find similar experiences. I've actually thought about this a lot, and because I mean, some of the most famous philosophers in human history, like Kant, Kant, like one of the Enlightenment philosophers, he never
Hmm.
went like more than 20 miles away from his hometown of Königsberg, but and the way he did it was he went back in time. So I'm wondering if learning history, not traveling geographically, but learning history and the history of maybe where you are, is another way to expand your mind and view
Yeah.
more globally.
Yeah, I think there's so many different ways to do that. Actually, so I was traveling for quite some time. So after DePaul, after I graduated university, I went and I worked a corporate job. And then after that, I was really dissatisfied with the corporate world. And so I joined the Peace Corps and I did community economic development in Costa Rica. And after that, I started to realize how much I loved traveling, because it was such a mind-opening, transformative experience for me. And I became addicted to it. I wanted more of it. So then I was living in Nepal and in India, and I traveled to Sri Lanka. And I remember having so much resistance to coming back to the US, because I had to come back. And the reason why I was having so much resistance was because I was learning so much about myself from traveling. But then when I came back to the US, when I came back to Chicago, I started to learn so much more about myself when just being at home, just being in the place that I was born in. And the way that I was able to experience that was surrounding myself around different people. You know, I think our environment is one of the most influential things, and it's the people that we surround ourselves by, the food that we eat, the music that we listen to. All of these things can have an impact on us. You don't have to go, 1,000 miles away to really experience anything outside of that's going to really impact your life. You could do it even in your bed, just a meditation.
Right.
There's so many ways.
So what would you say to a young person? This is what us as educators, what we really try to have this effect on our students. We're thrilled and we're happy when someone like yourself takes it upon themselves to grow in the ways that you have grown. But imagine a young person, maybe back when you started doing a lot of these experiences, these worldly experiences that you gave yourself, who has a little bit more reticence, or they're a little hesitant, or maybe even a little scared to do that. What might you say to someone like that to inspire them to, make the leap?
I mean, I think that fear can be one of the biggest blocks in our lives from helping us to succeed. And I think that once we are able to move past fear of failure, or fear of being seen, or fear of being shamed or shut down or criticized, once you're able to move past that, the possibilities are endless. And I think that just practicing learning how to build confidence in yourself, especially at such a young age. I mean, I'm telling you, I think having confidence in yourself, being secure with yourself, is one of the biggest gifts that you can give yourself. And doing it at a young age, that will set you up for the rest of your life. Right. Because you're going to continue to have challenges as you get older. The world gets bigger as you get older, and you're constantly going to be facing all of these challenges, meeting people that push you and, they criticize you. But when you're confident in yourself, you don't succumb to that. You don't succumb to anyone else's opinions, because you know that you're the best. And yeah.
One of the things we work really hard to instill in our entrepreneurship students, it's an important part of the entrepreneurial mindset, is that the key to being able to deal with external change is a changeless sense of who you are. And that kind of confidence that you're talking about, know thyself, be confident in who you are, I think comes a lot from just being aware of who you are at a very natural, authentic level. And so it takes us into the realm of, like you said earlier, meditation or reflection and inner peace, and just being grounded at a personal level, I think can do so much for a young person or anybody who may be branching out into a very uncertain realm where they don't know what's going to happen. But if you know truly who you are and who you are not, you're able to take steps like that. Would you agree?
Exactly. 100%. I definitely agree. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. This is great. So you have articulated and illustrated for us a very rich sense of stepping outside one's comfort zone. You've traveled a lot. You're outside the U.S. right now. You're outside the country you were born, and you've gone on to start an entrepreneurial venture called Zaya. So give us just a couple sentences of what Zaya is and what it's about as a way to wrap up this segment.
Yeah. So Zaya is a digital holistic health platform that increases accessibility to holistic care for patients who have been diagnosed with a chronic disease, and really supporting their mental health and their physical well-being through education, technology, community, and science.
Awesome. Now we are going to learn all about Zaya when we come back on the Existential Edge podcast.